This recent article reveals potentially some new Sixers moves at the center position, and I agree 110% with this potential approach. With Joel Embiid's status and health and lingering knee issues, lingering back issues, foot issues, whatever the issues are going to be going forward, because what we've seen from Joel Embiid in the past, I don't think we'll ever be able to count on at 100% rate again. He will always be dealing with injuries. No matter how healthy his knee gets, he's still going to flare up. It's still going to get fatigued at some point during the season, during the rest of his career. That is just the blunt reality. But I 110% agree with this potential approach that the Sixers could take with the center position going forward. With a guy like Andre Drummond most likely to opt back in, you're going to have him and his contract on the books. And it could be a little bit of a debilitating player option exception for the Philadelphia 76ers roster. I'm sure they would rather Drummond opt out at this stage of his career, but I do believe the Sixers do need to continue to get younger at the center spot. Adem Bona showed great flashes last year, a lot of raw ability, and a lot of improvement throughout the season. But this potential approach, I think, could be a game changer for the Philadelphia 76ers. When you look at this question from an article or from a mailbag on phillyvoice.com to Adam Arison, I believe is his name, is the writer. The question comes in as, do you think Adem Bona is the long-term answer at the backup center, or should the Sixers look for a center with the second-round pick? And Adam goes into a little bit about Adem Bona and what he brought to the table last year and what he could bring going forward. But he says, I believe Bona has shown more than enough to receive continued investment of time behind the scenes and on the floor with the hopes that he will continue to evolve on his way to a long career as a quality NBA center. The Sixers backup center situation will be always pretty complicated if Joel Embiid is their starter because they will need more than one quality backup five, and that is what kind of caught my eye the most. But I think the Sixers can count on Bona to at least be a viable option as soon as opening night of the 25-26 season, thanks to his motor, shot blocking ability. Bona drew rave reviews from teammates and coaches alike down the stretch of his rookie season. And I think that was one of the kind of silver linings of last season. If you're going to be a glass half full approach type of person, with all the injuries to the older players and the turmoil that the team went through basically from start to finish last year, you did get a chance to see a lot of these younger guys in extended minutes, in extended roles that you probably wouldn't have before. Like Justin Edwards being able to carve out a role as a legitimate rotation player going into next season. Adem Bona showing a lot of flashes and some prominence as, maybe not a long term starting center, but a long term quality center in the NBA, but a guy that's still a raw player that could continue to develop into something more. And I think that was one of the silver linings of last season. But I do think when you're looking at this center position, you have to kind of tackle it head on. I don't care about Andre Drummond and his contract. That's something that the Sixers could probably potentially get out of, buy him out at some point in the season if it gets to that point. Or if a team gets desperate and they need a veteran option at the center spot, sure, maybe they're able to drop off Andre Drummond and just get his kind of roster spot and his salary off the books. But I do think the key line here is at the bottom of this first paragraph where it's because they will need more than one quality backup five. And I think that's been a main problem of the Joel Embiid era. And one of my kind of pet peeves as well as just a Sixers fan, a Sixers watcher, everyone complaining about the drop off when he goes off the floor. Look at the same thing happens in Denver with Jokic as well. It's going to be a drop off when your best player, when one of the top five players in the entire NBA, when healthy, is off the floor. That's an obvious, and I don't think people really count for that much. Obviously, it's not going to be the same production when an Andre Drummond goes in that a Joel Embiid. But I do agree that the drop off shouldn't be as significant. And the Sixers, with all the health questions and the health concerns surrounding Joel Embiid, they do need to continue to invest in this five spot for a long term guy. Is Adem Bona going to be that guy? Potentially, he could maybe be your starter in the post Joel Embiid era. But it is, I think, a worthwhile investment to continue to look at some of these young centers on the market, especially in the draft at that number 35 overall pick, or on the undrafted market as well, to really target and develop and be like, all right, we're not going to count on Joel for more than 50 regular season games. I put the over under for games played for him in the regular season next year at 39 and a half. I'll go to be generous. And I'd probably still take the under. I think he plays somewhere like 35 games, and you're really just trying to get him there to the playoffs. But you're going to need guys to go out there and fill minutes, eat minutes, and have more than one quality backup five. And I think there are a couple guys in the draft that they could look at that number 35 overall slot that could potentially help them out in that regard there. when you look at the rest of the kind of snapshot of this question on the mailbag, Bona is far from perfect, but the makeup of a quality backup center in the NBA could not be more obvious from his physical gifts to his athletic tools, his work ethic, and clear desire to improve. The Sixers are optimistic that he can be part of the rotation for years to come. But here's where I agree with Adam and his approach here. With that being said, if the Sixers are convinced that a big available at number 35 is just as good or better, Bona's impressive final months last season should not dissuade them from selecting that player. Not only because of Embiid's consistent lack of ability requires multiple trustworthy backups, which I think is a key, but also because second round picks are not such significant resources that they must be used to fit a team need. So if the Sixers are just really looking to get a long term kind of fix in there as well at center. Who knows even how long this Joel Embiid era could even last anymore. The Sixers could be potentially be in the market here at number 35 for a center, and I'm not sitting up here screaming that they need to pick a center there at number 35 because it's most likely going to be a forward with Ace Bailey or a guard and Trey Johnson or VJ Edgecombe most likely with the number 3 pick. But I do think it's a spot that they should look to target because they haven't had success historically with anyone in the free agent market besides Andre Drummond for that first half of that season before they traded him the 1 year. But they haven't had success with that backup guy behind Joel Embiid, and they have never been able to find a consistent guy. And Bonus showed some flashes. Maybe he could be that guy, but at the same time, I don't think he showed enough flashes where you're like he's penciled in as a backup center on opening night next season. So there are a few potential options there at number 35 in the draft that I think the Sixers could touch on, could look to select. Ryan Kalkbrenner is a guy that we highlighted just the other day ago in a video. He's been heavily mocked to the Sixers at that number 35 overall pick, and he's a player in his own regard that's like he's polished enough, 23 years old already, a 5-year player at the college level, a 4-time Big East Defensive Player of the Year. He's a player that's polished enough where like he can even come in and probably I think from day one play above or in front of Adem Bona as Bona continues to develop and in games where Embiid's out it's kind of the Kalkbrenner Bona different type of styles as well. Kalkbrenner more of your back to basket big, showing the ability to step up and step out and shoot a little bit more, but he's known for his defense and his rim protecting. Bona is a guy that's more of the freak athlete, going to run the floor, catch lobs. So I think it's kind of a good contrasting style there of two different type of big men to look at. Danny Wolf, I think, is going to probably be a first round pick if the Sixers were in the market to get him at 35, or who knows, maybe trade a future asset and get up into the end of the first round there and potentially select Danny Wolf if he slides. I think that would be an awesome fit. I think his offensive ability is unteachable, and I'm not comparing him or saying he will be the next Jokic, but has those similarities where a playmaker good with the ball in his hands at his size, able to shoot the ball, score the ball as well. A really fun watch. The guy from Penn State actually just declared or announced today that he will be keeping his name in the draft. A late riser throughout the combine process, but he's probably gotten a promise that he's going to be a draft pick. He probably would have gone to back to Penn State if he wasn't, but he's got the ability that he showed at the combine that really lit up some NBA scouts' eyes. So he could be in the mix as well. Amari Williams is a guy that I would compare more to Bona. Played at Drexel his entire career, transferred to Kentucky last year, and was one of the better defensive bigs in the country throughout his time at Drexel and Kentucky. A very, raw offensive game, I think you could say, not that much to offer. I think he's a little too similar to Bona in that regard, where I would probably steer away from him. Vlad Golden, another guy where he's a traditional kind of back to the basket player. He plays really hard. He's kind of in that more of that Kalkbrenner mode. And Maxine Reynaud, a fun offensive player as well. But there are several options here at number 35 that I think could be in the mix for the Sixers. But I think Ryan Kalkbrenner probably makes the most sense because I do like the way that him and Bona are kind of different centers and gives you a little bit of a different look. But I do think the Sixers need to take that approach, whether it is with a draft pick there at number 35, using cash maybe to get back into the second round and selecting one of these guys towards the tail end or targeting one of these guys on the free agent market. I think they need to go into next year with two young backup big men, let those guys battle it out, let those guys develop and kind of back up Joel Embiid, see what happens with the entire Andre Drummond situation. But I think it's a situation where the Philadelphia 76ers need to enter the season with two quality young backup bigs, and who knows if they both pan out. If they do, you figure that situation out later. But it is a situation where the Philadelphia 76ers need as many quality backups, I think, behind that they can afford to fit on the roster behind Joel Embiid because of the lack of availability and the concerns about his health and his injury status going forward. So As always, let me know what you guys think in the comments below. I love Adam's approach here of adding another big to go alongside Adem Bona, and potentially, developing another one here behind Joel Embiid to take over in the post Embiid era, which could be coming sooner than later than we hope. But let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Any second round big men that are potentially catching your eye, or a guy that maybe will slide to the undrafted market that the Sixers could look at as well. As always, please drop a like, drop a subscribe, and we'll talk to you next time here on Sixers Digest.